Are you ready? Did you light the candle? Okay, let's start the ritual. Welcome to Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I'm your host, Rachel. This is a space where truth gets its voice back because shame loses its power when we speak to it. Here, we don't skip the hard parts. We sit with them and we learn to hold ourselves inside them. This podcast is ritual in audio form, a way for us to bring intention and intuition back into our everyday. Let's dig into our roots and go deep.
I was gonna say it's funny that you mentioned the communication stuff being tricky with Mercury retrograde, and that in on this retreat that I was doing this weekend, I was like, there's a way of seeing what's going on as just me watching a bunch of boomers struggle with Zoom. But it's like it's very deep space, and I'm like totally fine with it. But somebody else like watching what's going on of like, oh, my teacher can't get the bell to work that like because he has a whole setup, or like all these boomers having the auto frame on their Zoom where it like zooms in on your face in such an unpleasant way. And just like trying to explain it to people what you're supposed to do. It
Yeah.
was very like it was going on both levels.
I wish that's what my Mercury retrograde was. So, I took a lot of hits. But we're getting through it. It's
Nice.
been lots of lessons. But Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Um, Before I start off with the first question that I always ask, I want to say how we met.
Yes,
It's an interesting story.
it is an interesting story. It's so funny because it is truly how we met, even though you would think we would have met before this.
It's true. Yeah, and it's a layered story. So we met at a speed dating event.
We did.
It was my first move to New York. And yeah, I had never done speed dating before, but gave it a try. Why not? And we
I
chatted.
had also never done it.
Yeah. We chatted and it was great. There was no one else who I was like at all interested in.
Sure.
But I went away saying like I definitely wanted to see you again, but thought we would be really good friends. So I told the person like if he's
Hmm.
okay with like friends,
Yeah.
you can give him my number. So then you texted me and we just started hanging out. Oh, and what we realized, I think we realized
We realized that
the
too.
speed dating that we went to high school together, but Ben was a year older than me. And
And I still am.
he's still a year older than me. And he was a grade older than me in high school. But I actually did vaguely remember you.
You seemed like when once we put that together, I was like, okay, you
Seemed
seem
familiar.
familiar.
Yeah. And we knew mutual people, and our school's not that big. Like,
It's big enough where it would make sense that we wouldn't know each other, but also that we'd be like, do I know you? It was like it's that sort of
and
sense.
and it's also the size where there was no way we weren't going to have mutual
Yeah, that's for sure.
people in
That's for
common.
sure.
Anyway, so yeah, we went to the same high school, which I've talked about a little bit about my experience in high school on here before and how it was not good.
Yeah.
Didn't love the environment that I went to high school in. The town is not my place, so it also is kind of ironic that now
Yeah.
we met each other after high school
Yeah.
and are friends.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
It is nice. And it's like I sometimes feel this way about navigating community where there's people that you feel like are new experiences and you're navigating your new experience in community like I don't know, you're interfacing with them and learning from them and getting new things. And I feel that in our relationship. And I feel we're kind of like there's a way in which there's like a we're doing it together as two people who grew up in this crazy environment and have like made the lifestyle choices and like health and wellness choices required to get the heck out of that.
Yeah.
So there's this like it's nice to check in with you and be like, how are we how are we doing? Because it's when you tell somebody I grew up in northern Westchester and now I live an hour 15 or an hour north of there, they might not think that's like, that you went very far from home, but in energetically, you have to really cut against the current to find yourself up here if you were a Greeley person.
Absolutely. And it is really nice. I feel like there is we're on the same page in a lot of things, and I feel like I can talk to you about certain things and not have to go into some explanation
Yeah.
or background story, like add context. You just kind of like get where I'm coming from. One, because we're from the same place and had similar backgrounds in that way, and also because we have like a similar mindset around things now.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'm grateful for it. It is rare. And I upstate New York is just so different from where we grew up and so different from the city, which I think a lot of people, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people who we went to school with end up in the city. So,
Yes, I've been thinking about the city in its relationship to up here, which is hard not to do when you're living here. But like the city is like the sun, and
mm,
if you're on the sun, you're gonna burn up. But if you're in Westchester, you're also probably gonna at least get a pretty decent sunburn. And this feels like the right distance to get warmed, but
mm.
not burned. And then further up, I'm like, I don't know what's going on
It's
up
too
there.
cold up there.
It's too cold.
I always explain to people, New York, there's the city, then
Yeah.
there's Westchester,
Hmm.
then there's upstate, then there's like upstate,
Yeah.
and then there's
And like
like
Western New York.
everything.
Yeah.
Like it's like
I
just keeps
almost grew up
going.
upstate in Western New York as this one, just like no man's land that I know nothing about.
Yeah,
I really like, yeah, I'm spent the vast majority of my life in New York State, but I know this tiny little bottom part of it. Even this is upstate only in name only. Like
mm,
we're probably still in like the lower third, right?
yeah, for sure.
So,
But it's in for me also since I left New York and traveled a lot and then came back to upstate, I don't think about this
mhm.
necessarily. Like I don't think about this is where I grew up. Like I think of upstate
Definitely.
and New York where I grew up. Upstate New York where I live now and upstate New York or and Westchester New York
Yeah.
where I grew up is like two separate things.
Totally.
Yeah.
So separate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so little shared reality between them. I mean, there might be few pockets
Mm,
up here where you'll see like there's at least a Venn diagram, but it feels like they're just totally different orbits. This was a very funny version of this that happened recently, but it was just my little group chat with my brother and my friend who didn't grow up in New York, but he lives in the city and we went to college together. So he's sort of become a Northeastern person. My brother texted the group chat and he's like, have you guys ever heard of Palo Santo? It's so good. And I'm like, there's no one in the Hudson Valley who doesn't know what Palo Santo is. But if you're a Westchester or a city person and you walk into a room, someone's burning this cool wood, you're like, oh, this is awesome.
It's actually so funny. I think I'm so in this world, and a lot of my friends are as well. Like I'm not in touch with anyone from high school except for one person really, and
Yeah.
just like so separate from that world that I forget that people don't know what like Palo Santo is. That's so funny. Okay, before we go any further, circling back to the first question, what is one thing you wish people knew about you that you don't think many do?
Mm, the one thing is instantly the hardest thing. I mean, I feel like most people who know me know a side of myself that I really care about. And so maybe they assume that that's the main thing, but it's not the only thing. And so it's usually like there's the wish part of the question's hard too, because I feel like I enjoy having like my friends with whom I have a more intellectual relationship, and then the friends who I'm doing more like spiritual stuff with, friends who are just like either like goofing around with, like it just kind of fills up all the different parts for me. And then there's the friends where I can do a lot of that.
Mm.
And that's like, usually the people that I'm the closest with. But I think I get excited when I can show another side of myself to somebody that I like. I don't know, a lot of my um, friends up here don't necessarily like I'm a huge movie nerd and I care about film a ton, and that's just not something that comes up that I mean I host movie nights, so that's the one place where it comes up here, But I have friends who like were always texting about films. We're always like, what did you think of this new, I went to go see The Odyssey on the first day it came out and like doing, I don't know. When you get to a point where you're going on solo movie trips, you've entered a new realm in terms of your movie going fandom. That's just one example, but it's like there are so many friends up here who wouldn't really know that about me because I'm not advertising. And I think I'm wanting more relationships where I feel like, oh, it's not that I don't feel like all my parts are welcome, but just like these people are excited to connect with me in all these different ways, you know? So that's sort of where my mind goes, like just more. I have more sides than of myself than I know what to do with.
Yeah. Well, I relate to that. And that's interesting. Do you think that there was a part of you when you met different people that was keeping certain parts of yourself closed off, or was it just like naturally?
So I think probably what happened was after going, Greeley was a place where I was like, I need to, particularly towards the end of high school, rebel against this status quo culture because I'm not gonna survive as myself unless I do. Um, but that turned into, as often those sorts of teenage rebellion does, like very egoistic and like I'm off on my side doing my cool thing and everyone else is full of shit and I'm in life school and main campus sucks, which we don't have to explain to everybody, but you'll understand what that means.
I do.
Um,
My mom told me to do life school, and
well, we would have met
we would
and
have.
you would have had a opinion. Your opinion of me might have been he's an asshole, but I don't think I was that bad. I was actually nicer than most of my friends, but we were piloting the idea of being jerks sort of
Right.
for the first time, at least in my life. And just like in this way that when I got to college, it was this breath of fresh air of like, oh, I'm making friends with these nerdy people who don't care about being seen as cool. And so I just can like let that part of me kind of go and still like, be into my niche things and dress how I want to dress, but not be so fixated on it because it had gotten exhausting. Uh, and then after college, I was like, I'm tired of having just intellectual connections with people. I mean, yes, people you laugh with a lot and share these memories, but they were maybe more founded on intellectual connection, late night conversation about what we're learning in class and stuff. And then moving to the Bay Area, it's like everybody's just trying to do the, touchy-feely spiritual thing. And I found that to be a hard transition socially in a lot of ways, because partly because of the size, but also I think that the I never like when you hang out with people who have never spent time in the Northeast, there's something of like the directness that's missing. And what I realize is as much as that directness can come with a lot of like sharp edges, it helps me locate where someone's at emotionally in a way that out there it would just be like, are you just like, am I think partly being pretty young still, being like, is it me or are you full of shit?
Mhm.
So these spiritual people,
100%.
I really would get stuck in the is it me? Because I'm like, oh, well, maybe they're just totally unself-conscious and just being this way, and that's just cool out here. But I would have moments where I was like, I can't handle the wavelength that people are on. And I think moving back to this area was sort of an integration of like, I just mentioned that I was on this retreat with my teacher who I met at last year, and that community was, or my teacher that I met when I was in the Bay Area. That community's been extremely important to me for years, but especially when I was out there, it was like older people mostly, and there was just a few of us younger people who were very much like under their wing. And so that let me kind of expand in these spiritual worlds, I guess, in a way that felt safe and good. And then bringing it back here, it was like, I want clear communication. I want, yeah, like more, just like the more of the like joy in the mundane that I think that in the Bay, it's sometimes a little bit oriented towards those peak experiences that are fun while they last. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I relate to some of that in my experience from when I moved to Hawaii and
yeah,
just feeling like when I went through high school and college, I feel like I was really still figuring out who I was and how to express who I was to the world. Um, and when I got to Hawaii, I was like, felt more grounded in that, but I didn't know how to kind of what you were saying, like combine my how I am this like very spiritual, but also like I called being a New Yorker, a Virgo, like whatever. I
Yeah.
like structure, neat, like doing things. I'm very clear with my communication. I
Yeah.
like, and it also makes me feel safe. Like
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that was looking back on my experience in Hawaii. I think a lot of what I felt was this lack of safety because there were a lot of blurred boundaries, both like physically, emotionally, with communication. Like there was a lot of uncertainty with. Sorry, I know this fly is like.
No worries. It just landed on my side.
Um,
Gentle shake.
Um, yeah, and that really impacted me in ways that I didn't realize until looking back. Um, and so for me now, having that sense of safety is the most important thing. And I still think people, because I think people struggle with communication and boundaries and um, like establishing that kind of clarity in wherever you live. And so I take it upon myself to be like, clear communication is really important to me. Like being honest and direct with each other is really important to me. And like I try to establish that in all of my relationships, personally and professionally, um, because I need that for myself to feel safe and to feel comfortable and also to feel able to be myself, you know? Um, yes, that's been like a really big experience of mine for a
Mm,
long time.
totally. Yeah, it's like you need, I think because the way of doing things, or I'll just speak for myself, growing up in the Northeast in Westchester specifically, it's like these well-worn paths of how you're supposed to do things, and moving somewhere else where it's just like a totally different set of rules was um, liberating on one level, but I think that feeling of like discomfort or lack of safety a, was a theme. Like, how do I know if these people like me?
Mhm.
Sometimes like that, even down to that level, it just like was so much harder to have bonding because I felt this sort of there's that like West Coast sweetness that feels like it's not always depth, oriented towards depth. That, sometimes, you look at the way people relate in Westchester and you're like, I don't know if these people have like I don't know what they talk about, but they're very loyal to each other, you know? People like really stay in each other's lives to a fault sometimes, you'll have the friend groups that turn toxic or they're all talking shit about each other whenever one of them's absent, but there is that thing where like you doing life together. And it's a version of community that I think is easy to like write off, but I'm like, I don't know, my mom has had lunch with the same group of women for you know, almost since I was born, on every Monday. So it's like that's a real community thing. Uh, that is not, it's just not easy to build something like that if you're not direct.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you bring that up because now that I think about it, again, I'm not in contact with anyone really from high school, but I have this one friend who sometimes will like tell me things that going on. Anyway, all that to
I like
say,
that. You get obviously I need the gossip. So
right.
you get one little pipeline.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
That's all I can handle. Um, but all of that to say is that I know that there are certain groups from high school that are still, st I mean, I don't know how, like, what the, what's it like inside of it, but
Sure.
they're
They
still
still
always
exist.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And bridesmaids at each other's weddings and like always hanging out and going on vacation. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine. And you know, it is in a way really special. And yeah, they're very loyal to each other. And that there is something to say to that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I think for myself, it's like, it's from having branched out that I can feel more confident in the friendships I've chosen to keep over that long period of time where it's like I've seen other options too.
Hmm.
And I choose these to keep these friendships not just because of the shared memories, but also because I still think they're capable of generating something meaningful.
Absolutely. I think sometimes I can have certain feelings come up when I think back on like childhood friends, um, or just like my experience socially, especially in high school, and how that drew me away from certain friends I thought would be in my life forever. And when people talk about their childhood friends, like I just don't have those relationships anymore. And it can make me sad. But then I think about why I distanced myself and where that path led me and like who I was then and who I am now. Like it all makes sense. And so,
Hmm.
everyone's path is just so different. But yeah, I think I I had to separate myself from everything that that
Yeah.
time encapsulated for me in order to discover who I truly
And I think that there's like, there's a non-linear part of it too, where you may come back to those people someday if they, turn out to be people who connect with you.
am. Hmm.
I mean, I've definitely had people that I've reconnected with over time, and it's like we were never, you see like, oh, we were never going to be in a linear trajectory that we were going to be able to do everything together forever. But suddenly you're like, oh, where we wound up, even though we had to do our big detours, where we wound up was actually pretty compatible
Yeah.
again, too.
Yeah, I think it would have to be something like meet randomly again, or like we are for some reason like at a similar community type of
Hmm.
thing, and we're like, oh wow, we're interested in the same things
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Um, I'm open to it. You never know.
totally. Do you have close friends who you're like, as I was sort of sharing about like these different sides of myself, where they're
Mhm.
like, they're into just totally different stuff, but we overlap in these two things or whatever, and you wouldn't, maybe it's not that I wouldn't recognize you when you're with them, but it's just a whole different side of yourself that you get to explore with them.
That's interesting. I feel like so I have friends from so many different spaces because I've lived in so many different places and had different, experiences, trainings.
Sure.
So I feel like many of my friends are very different from me, um, and have different interests and perspectives, but and personalities. So sometimes, yes, they do bring out different sides of me, but I would say I'm consistent in all of
Mm.
them. Um, yeah, like even with my friends who aren't into the
Sure.
same type of stuff, like I'm the one who is, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes
Um,
sense.
and we connect, like, yeah, I was gonna give an example, but um, so I feel like I am pretty consistent.
Hmm.
And that's just part of also knowing our human designs. It actually you have a 4 in your profile, right? If you remember.
Think that's right.
I'm pretty sure you do.
Okay. I believe you.
Uh,
You would remember.
I'm not, just to like when I have a 5 in my profile, and the 5 is like more of a universal personality, and so like everyone I show up with, I'm kind of the same no matter what,
Mm.
versus the 4 is very much like about your
Yeah.
specific people
Mhm.
and very discerning about. I mean, there's a lot of nuance and layers to this, which
Yeah.
we could go into, but like the 4 is more specific, like these are my people and these are not my people. Or
Mm.
like I show up in this way with these people and this way
Hmm.
with these.
Interesting.
So there is that like difference in personality.
Sure. It is yeah, it's something I've been reflecting on of like, how do I like to meet people?
Mm,
Um, because I think there's a lot of directions I could go here, but where I'm thinking about this is with dating specifically, um, because I do have this like, in some sense, malleable personality, which I feel like we're often told is like bad because it
mhm.
means you're going to be fake. And I've certainly worked on being more authentic with myself, but I think that my most authentic expression is like finding different people with whom I can embody different parts of myself, let different interests come to the forefront.
For sure.
Um, but with meeting people and around dating, I've been feeling into like, first of all, the second you go on social media and like start looking at anything that's giving dating advice, it's the most maddening and terrifying world of here's every single opinion and people shouting at you with like crazy confidence, but you're like, what the hell is this person's credentials? And even if they have credentials, I don't believe them. Um, but so much of like men's dating advice is I'm like, the little butterfly meme where the guy's like, is this something? And he's always wrong about what it actually is. He's like it's like a anime character
Mm.
looking at a butterfly in his
Yes,
hands.
yes, yes, yes.
I'm like, I feel like I'm getting the butterfly says, like it's just like patriarchy, and I'm looking at it being like, is this dating advice? Is the advice is just like, oh, you have to be more, just be more of a man. If you don't have the person you want, you just need to turn up all the dials on how to like be a man. And it's so not historically how I meet people in general. I like doing a mutual, like suddenly we're talking thing, not this like approach someone that is just like every single thing in men's dating advice is, and I get that if you're someone who's very introverted, that might be the right advice for you is to start putting yourself out there. But for me, I'm like, I am putting myself out there, but I don't do it by like approaching individuals. I do it by creating community, finding myself in community spaces and like letting things unfold naturally and see where there's like a moment of not even necessarily like a spark of attraction, but just a moment of like, oh, this person is receptive to me. We're having good conversation.
Mm.
Um, and I think that, I don't know, I'm just like, this might just be veering it totally in this other direction, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, what the advice that women are often being handed around this is, because I feel like I'm sure that it's equally bad just on the other end of the spectrum.
Mhm.
And ultimately, obviously, like the easiest and most correct, but most cliche advice is to be yourself, right?
Mhm.
And the more you can like let that actually in, as opposed to the platitude that's like kind of, there's this super surface level of it, and then there's a really deep level of it. The more you can let it in, I think the more value it has. But I don't know, this has been a topic that I've been talking with a lot of people about, particularly single friends. I'm like, we're being told such crazy things. We're being given the apps as the like lifeline to dating. And um I don't know, like how is it, I guess I'm just usually like, how is it landing for you? How are you dealing with it as somebody who it sounds like you are um usually, because I think the reason why I've found myself judging myself around it and being like, oh, maybe I do need to be more this other way is because I have this malleable personality. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm bringing a friend vibe to someone I'm interested in
Mhm.
because I'm comfortable there. And I need to kind of just get a little bit more serious or something. When you're sharing that you feel like your personality's kind of the same with different people and you're just friends with who you're friends with, I wonder how it lands for you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so much to say. I like talking about dating with you. One, because I feel like we have similar backgrounds,
Hmm.
and also now like want different things in a similar way. And two, you're one of my only, especially guy friends, who's single, has been like in the trenches in the same way that I have been, and like looking for a relationship. So I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, so it's nice to talk to you about it. Um, okay, so there I feel like there were two questions.
Hmm.
Um, the first, well, I'll answer the second one first.
Okay.
Um, how is it like for me because I
Hmm.
am consistent and
Yeah.
different? Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I also, I mean, I do feel like different parts of me come out in different relationships or different dynamics, but not in a way where you would be like you're acting different. I feel like sometimes I share different things with different people, or I mean, a lot of it's about comfortability.
Sure.
Um, but when it comes to dating specifically, I, you know, this might not be answering your question, so we can
Mhm.
come back to it. But what's coming up for me is how I had a situation recently, because I've been on the apps for a while, and I feel like that's been how I've been meeting most people who I'm going on dates with. Um, and I really hate it, but we can come back to that. But recently I met someone who I was like kind of curious about in person. But it was weird because it was the first time I met someone in person in a really long time where the context wasn't like, oh, we're interested in each other. So it was like, how do I show up?
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I show up? I don't want to cross a boundary. Like I don't want to be, and I don't love being like, and I'm not like again, I show up pretty consistently with most people, so I'm not like super flirty or different.
Sure.
So it's like, how do I show I'm interested and like in a way that is, yeah, it was like really weird for me to figure out.
Sure.
Because yeah, especially because I think sometimes people find me hard to read because I am just like not super like I am just the same with everyone, you know.
Sure.
Um, but yeah,
It's so interesting. I mean, there's so much to say there. And I'll remember the other question and circle back to it. I mean, it probably will come up anyway. But this idea, I was feeling this recently on a dating app date that I went on, where it's like we've already expressed interest for each other, but now we're finding out whether we are actually interested. And there's the thing about meeting someone for the first time through an app where it's not really meeting them for the first time because you have this charge already built in of the potential of attraction. And you know that when you see that person, they think there's enough potential that they broke up their busy week to see you. Whereas if you meet somebody in the world, which is like the much more organic way for it to happen, we're at a point now where we're like, how are we signaling desire and being um and owning that like the sort of dance of flirting with somebody as a way of discerning whether you like them. Like you're not just you flirt because you might be interested in the possibility, not because you're saying I declare my I'm not you're not declaring your interest. Um, but there's something I think it makes the dating app relationships really hard to cultivate in the right way because you're starting off on this like artificial ground where it's almost hard to let yourself get to know them well, I'll just speak for myself. It's hard for me to let myself get to know a person off of an app at the pace that actually feels good for me because there's an implication of attraction that feels like inescapable. Like you can't, if you show up on that date and you're just sort of just feeling each other out, usually kind of like fizzles because there's already this like, ooh, I'm interested in this guy. I'm excited for this date. There's that charge. Whereas meeting somebody out in the world, like you're building that together. And I'm very sensitive to those things of like how one one action has all of these ripple effects in a relationship. And if you started out in this way that's just not quite lined up, eventually those ripple effects are going to grow and there's going to be all this distortion. And you might have even been compatible with the person. But I think that there's so much talked about like the apps themselves, but even once you've gotten off the app and into real life, the apps are hanging over your head in such a weird way.
I agree with that. Well, one thing I will say is that I think something that's hard for me, well, there's something you said that I didn't, there's something you said that I wanted to respond to. Um, it'll come to me if it needs to. Oh, that reminds me. Um, I feel that maybe you were compatible, but if there's something that happened that made that compatibility go away or like made it not work out, I feel like that's for a reason.
Sure.
For me, I have to believe this for myself to keep myself sane. if it's the right person, it will work out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I think we do all kind of have to believe that to
yeah,
keep ourselves sane. And I don't disagree with it. And I still think like meaningful dating relationships are sometimes stepping stones to that. And the apps on one level introduced me to people I would have never met. And on the other level, it's like, gosh, like you just feel the way that things were too charged at the beginning. And it would have been nice if I'd met this person organically. It would
yeah.
have allowed it something else.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think my biggest issue with the apps is that for me, attraction and compatibility
Hmm.
in any
Yeah.
relationship is about energy.
Yeah.
And so on the app, it's like I can think that I'm interested,
Yeah.
and it can kind of like seem like there's something, but then we meet in person, I'm like, I know right away I want
I
nothing to do with
know. It
you.
can be instant. And
In
that's the nightmare.
instant.
That's the nightmare.
For me, it's pretty much 99.9% of the time instant. Like I
Wow.
know whether
Hmm.
or not I'm interested. Most of the time it's a no. And that's why I've tried to like start to incorporate FaceTime dates before we
Mm.
meet in person, which
All right.
does help because most of the time then I'm like, okay, don't even need to see you in person. But it also for me, like I do love romance and like
Yeah.
it just takes something away from it.
That's exactly. Maybe
It
that's a better way of putting what I'm saying is like that makes the romance, it's like it like simulates romance and then you just end up skipping that part. Yeah, I remember watching this like I don't know if you know the philosopher Slavoj Žižek, he's got a very strong accent. And he talked about that of like being like, he's like this out there super intellectual Marxist philosopher, but he's like, I'm a total romantic. And I really think the apps are like taking out the falling part of falling in love. And just even that the meet cute, the circumstances where you're like, wow, we just were in the same place at the same time, like that's actually an essential part of it. And then I'm like, well, there are people I know who met through the apps and you can feel them meant to be
yeah.
for them. So it's not a universal, but I almost wonder, like sometimes I'm like, my friends and I who have been on the apps for a really long time, and like these things seem to have like corroded. Some part of me knows it's not going to generate the person that I'm looking for after all this time and all this frustration.
I just feel like I'm not gonna meet my person on that, but I try to stay positive and like I go on and off and like,
Yeah.
it's also hard when we live
Yeah.
upstate and all that stuff, but it does. I think the issue, well, one, I think when the people who do find their person on the app, that is romantic because it's
Hmm.
rare. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's
Sure.
just as rare as going into a bar and meeting your person.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
Yeah.
I think the I think what's hard is that romance is taken out of it when you're just like another
Going on a million of them.
going on. It's just
Yeah.
the same. Like they're hi,
Yeah.
like how are you?
Yeah.
Like just the same conversation.
Yeah.
And then it's like because if someone's if we're if we and they're like they're even I was gonna say if someone's expressing interest and being really intentional, that's different. But even then, they're doing that with other people. Like the thing is like I think one thing that I really, I guess, maybe romanticize or just like about meeting someone in person is like there's something like you see each other and you're both like there's something about you.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
on the app, it's like
Yeah.
you're just another person,
Totally.
you know?
Totally.
And that's really hard for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's like you're the person in my active chats who was responding the quickest and I wanted to
Exactly.
go on a date. I feel like I'm in this post-retreat reflection on my technology use and trying to create some better practices around compulsive behavior on my phone in particular. And the apps have been a source of compulsivity for me. And I think that the one way of viewing them, it's kind of the only way that for myself I can view them as healthy is there's the part of myself that knows it's not going to come through the app. And then just to be like, well, I don't know for sure. So keep the app and check it maybe once a day or something. And that's it's almost to make it so there's less pressure on the in-person thing of
Yeah.
just like, well, this could happen too. And sort of the humility of, I don't actually know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And everyone says it happens when you least expect it. So maybe that means it's guaranteed to happen on me because I don't think it's going to. Um, but then, yeah, the other question I was curious about is like, how is this, I don't know, this cycle of I really wish I'd saved this video. It was this Instagram video I saw years ago, and it was a woman, and she basically did like she gave every single piece of dating advice that you've ever heard and the contradiction of it, where she's like, you need to work on yourself before you're ready to be dating. And then the next clip was her saying, um, you can grow together and you can bring your flaws to the relationship. And it was just being like, all of these things are actually valid, and taking one of them as dogma is like the only thing that doesn't really work. Yeah. Or finding the ones that work for you maybe can work, but like I feel like other single friends and I have spoken about feeling you watch one of those videos, the next thing you know, you're bombarded by it in the algorithm. And I'm curious what the algorithm is like for women around that if you find yourself in that space. Because I think that what what we get as men is like, no, actually we need to like double down on the toxic parts of our conditioning because that's what's going to make us attractive. And like with so much of men's stuff, it's like, well, what's underneath it is this assumption that you're not valuable unless you prove it and show up in a way that convinces somebody that you're worthwhile. And that's always going to be coming from a lack mindset. So it just reinforces the like loneliness that it's trying to solve. Anyway, I'm curious how that goes with women.
Yeah, well, I can't speak. So I don't look at my algorithm. Like, I don't look at my For You page. I don't scroll. Like,
Nice job.
I say about that, but I do listen to like a lot of podcasts. I like listening to relationship dating podcasts, so I can talk about that aspect. Um, and I try, but with that, I can be a little bit more intentional and choosy about like who I'm listening to.
Sure.
So I don't have the like bombardment of random advice because I'm sick of it. Like I
Yeah.
simply cannot. Because for me at the crux, it is kind of like I'm going to listen to my intuition, and if this feels right in this moment, I'm going to follow that, even if everyone's saying don't do that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think there are certain like a lot of people saying like you can't like don't do this, like don't sleep with someone until after three
Sure.
dates, 5 dates, like don't only have 2 drinks, only spend half an hour with them, like or like an hour, like all these like random things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think you have to know yourself
Yeah.
and what makes sense to you. Like, are you someone who consistently goes on dates and like spends hours with that person and then like never talks to like like maybe that's
Yeah.
something to look at and understand, but I think it's just like, and I do have certain guidelines for myself, but it's from past experiences that have helped me know what I need, like
Hmm.
versus random rules. Yeah, like don't text them,
Yeah.
like you know they should text you, like, and there are I would say that there are certain things that do feel good for me
Sure.
in that dynamic, that maybe is like a little bit more traditional, but again that's because it's for me,
Yeah. Well, it's almost like these things, these pieces of advice of just like, here's a practice to follow a lot of the time is sort of a supplement for someone who's doesn't isn't capable of following their intuition, right? Where it's like maybe your emotional instinct is to attach so quickly and you text them too much and then you push them away. So the person will then tell you, okay, don't, wait a few days to text them or make sure your first few dates are spaced out by this much so that it doesn't get overwhelming. It's not that it's bad advice, it's just that it might be different for um, the individual connection because if you're following it intuitively, it's like, oh, this one we actually our first date went for 3 hours and that felt right, but we didn't, we only hugged at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Like it's totally the real thing is going to be real. It's not going to be like, oh, I achieved it because I followed all the steps.
Exactly. And that's again where I come back to like, if it's my person, I can't do it because sometimes I do get so in my head.
Totally.
Um,
I I think that's the right thing. I think that for me, where I'd been getting stuck is, well, I've wanted this for so long and not been getting it. There must be something that I'm doing that's not working. It's not clicking with whether you want to say it's with individual people or with the universe or what have you. It's just like, well, it's not showing up and it's the thing I want. And it's very easy then to turn that into like, I mean, that just cuts off intuition entirely because you're like, well, if I think that I'm doing something wrong, but I don't know what it is, I'm just going to come generate story after story after story about what I could fix. And usually when I do that, I just feel more disintegrated and more, I don't know, when people talk about like, are you confident or not? I think I can be extremely confident when I feel, it's almost like when I feel called to be. If I'm just like in a weird interaction with somebody and I'm not that interested in where things are going or they're giving me weird energy, like I don't think I'm usually going to be my most confident self. But when I feel like, oh, I'm interested in this person, I want to talk to them, I'm gonna like bring more of myself online energetically to meet them. Then the confidence can just be there. And then suddenly you're like, oh, actually, it's not hard to be confident with this person because they make me feel comfortable for whatever obvious or subtle reason. Um, and I think that's a piece that's like lost too, particularly with like the conditioning that men have around dating of like your confidence is everything. It's like it's okay that you didn't feel confident with somebody who you clearly weren't compatible for. It doesn't mean something bad or wrong about how you're approaching and being extremely confident. I won't mention who, but there's someone in my life who is, I would say, extremely confident in dating and like can approach people. And he shares with me how it makes it hard to discern who he should actually pursue because he can get interest pretty easily because he can show up with all this confident and is attractive and all this stuff. But then it's like, well, where's my discernment, right? That there's like wherever we fall on the spectrum, we're gonna have our friction until we find the person.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I do feel like with the right person,
Yeah.
they should you should feel that comfortability. And if you're in, I've had moments where someone's making me feel really insecure, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to. With other people, I feel super confident, so I don't need to like figure out why I'm feeling insecure. I just need to like
Yeah.
move away from this person. But I've had moments as well where I again get very in my head because, like you said, this is what I want and it's not here. So like, what am I doing wrong? But and I think when I can get really um caught up in, and this shows up in every area of my life of like, am I doing enough? Like, am I doing all the right things? Like, I need to be proving to everyone that I'm trying hard enough. And that flows over into this realm too. Um, and I just have to come back to like, I'm figuring it out. Like, I'm doing what I can every day to like, and this, I can't remember if I told you about this, but I had a reading with a Vedic astrologer. Did I tell you about this?
I think you did.
And she was saying how I'm not going to meet my person until like later in my 30s. Um, and
Perfect, because now you won't expect it.
right,
And that's when you're gonna find it.
right. Because it happens when you least expect it, which is probably my least favorite thing that people say. Because I'm
Yes.
like, this is just something I want. Like, I can't not
Yeah.
want it.
And I can't not expect it because I want it all
Yeah.
the time. Totally, totally.
Like,
If I can just cultivate 5 minutes of not thinking about it, then maybe they'll walk through the door, you know? Like 23 hours and 40 and 55 minutes of the day I'm thinking about it. So fine. Totally.
and so when and I think she framed it as like, this is going to be so supportive to you because you can like know it's not you, like it's just going to happen later in life because of how the chart is. Um, which I already know it's not me. Like, again, I'm like pretty confident in myself. Like, obviously I have my moments and like all these things that I could whatever,
Yeah.
but I was just like, no. And
Good.
now I'm like on a quest to prove her wrong.
Great. I love it.
We'll see how that goes.
I think it's spot on.
Uh,
It's so funny because I had a friend who looked at my chart and I was feeling around dating and I was feeling like kind of down at that moment. And she looked at my chart and she's like, oh, it's going to be fine. And then I was like, this is all I needed to hear. It was just like, based on these placements, like, yeah, I could see why it's hard, but like, it's going to be totally fine and it's going to be great. She didn't give me a time though. That was helpful that she didn't give me a time.
I know. I think that's with Vedic astrology is so predictive,
Yeah.
where it was like
It can be a curse.
I was and I mean and I talked about this actually on a different podcast. I think I went into it a little bit, but it just was like a reminder that I can't seek external certainty.
Yep.
Like it was
Exactly.
me going to her was one because I knew how she moved. Um, and so me going to her was wanting that sort of like control or
Yeah.
certainty, and it just kind of bit me in the ass and it wasn't helpful. And I was like,
Totally.
it's just a reminder.
It's funny because you mentioned that like it's supposed to be so that you don't take it so personally, but it's so subtle how quickly it turns into like the most personal thing in the world. You're like, you're saying that I'm gonna not meet someone until I'm 38? Like that's unacceptable. I think that the best thing around like for me, I'm like, well, the one blessing that all of this frustration around dating has given me is a ton of frustration that was latent in my system and that I was not looking at, and now I have to. And like working with it is like you do expand and grow from doing like it's not obviously what my ego wants to hear is like, and my teacher says like, when you don't get what you want, you get a learning experience. But after a while, you get pretty sick of having learning experiences. And and yeah, there's that way in which like I'm sick of the learning experience and I'm sick of being sick of the learning experience and I'm sick of being sick of being sick of it. Like it just starts to compound. Um, but I think there is something true about like just being when we are in that place of receptivity, um, and just believing like I mean I'm thinking about the times in my life where I've just met somebody and it's like it usually does come when I'm just sort of in a like I
Yeah.
just don't really have like even an intention. I'm just sort of like there. I'm in a place and I'm just like here I am and then all of a sudden I'm talking, I don't even really realize how it happened, but I'm talking to the person. And that's what feels so, yeah, I guess in me, counter to this traditional men's conditioning of like, I got a reading not that long ago where this one was like, you need to be like, there's like this hunter mentality, like not predatory, but like a hunter. Like you need to go out there and like find the person. And I'm like, well, if that's what I need to do, I'm screwed because it's just not me. Like I just know that's not me. Um, and what I did find helpful about it being like, I'm gonna put myself in. Maybe I was giving it too much credit, but I like almost reframing it where it's like, well, Hunter just goes to a place and then gets quiet and waits, and watches. And rather than like, we don't need to be the hunter with the spear chasing something 30 miles, but the hunter who's just like, I'm sitting here, maybe I'm camouflaged, maybe you don't want to be too camouflaged in this metaphor, but you know, you're yeah, exactly. And like let it, and if so nothing comes, then it wasn't my fault because I was just doing the same thing that you do, which is just wait. Um, so maybe that's the reframe that dudes need a little bit. At least dudes like me.
Yeah, no, I like that reframe. And for me, it's challenging because I am so comfortable by myself. This being by myself is my comfort zone. It's what I'm used to and what I know, and I am confident in this space. And I have had I feel like I've had many different experiences dating, and I'm also in the place where it's like I don't need any more experiences. I don't need another first date, you know what I mean? And so I would like if it's not someone who I really am interested in, I would rather be by myself.
Hmm.
So I'm not like trying to be I'm in the place where it's like I'm not trying to be picky
Yeah.
or closed off, but it's like if
Yeah.
I've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
If I'm not interested in you, I'm not just gonna like see what happens.
Yeah.
My brother has this saying that I think my brother is sorry to throw him under the bus. Love you so much. He, his dating advice that he gives me is probably the least favorite I've ever gotten from anyone.
Nice.
Because he has like,
It's good to do the opposite.
yeah. And one thing that he always says to me is date them till you hate them. And I'm like, no.
It's so fucking weird.
Like, I'm just not gonna, like, that's the shit I don't.
Wait, what? Why?
I think his mindset is like people judge, like, and he's married
Judge too
with a
quickly.
kid, so like
Uh-huh.
but like judge too quickly,
Oh my God, that's such a funny piece of
or like,
advice.
like I don't know, give people a chance, or like I think, yeah, I think it's like
Yeah, well, it's just the word hate is the problem there. I guess you could say date them to,
like date them,
so
you
know.
know you don't like them, or
Yeah.
like I just happen to know pretty early
Yeah.
on whether yeah.
I do. I remember I had a friend in the Bay Area who said she went on like a perfectly okay first date and was like pretty close to saying, let's not do a second. But then the person seemed pretty interested and she was like, okay, I'll give them another shot. And they're married. So it's like there is something to that. And I think, but if I know, then I'm really not actually being kind to the person. Like she was in a place where she's like, the first date was like a 5 or 6 out of 10, but then seeing this other person show interest was enough to make me be a yes to it. But if I'm like, I'm actually a no and I say yes, that's not gonna help me.
Yeah, I think most of my things are no, but I have had the ones where it's like, okay, this was fine,
Yeah.
but I still don't want to see them again. Like there's no reason, like,
Sure.
and there have been a couple of times where I've like pushed myself to see them again. It's never worked out. Like it's, I think, and this again, this is just me personally knowing how I work, my intuition, like all that kind of stuff. Like I just know myself, and usually I just know things in this realm. But it's like most of my dates are fine, and some of them, like, if things were different, like maybe we could be friends, like it's fine.
Sure.
But I want to feel something.
Yeah, of
Like
course.
usually I come home and I'm like, I cry. Even if it was fun, I like want to cry because it was just like, like another stupid first date,
Sure.
But yeah, for some people, you give them a second chance and it's fine. It works. But like that's just been my experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never had that experience either. It's just that there's one person I know that it worked for.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great story because of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's true. There you go.
But that's because it's rare. It doesn't usually happen.
Well, now it's been written. It can't happen again.
Right.
It's just happened once. Should we switch over? Tune into my podcast for part 2.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.